Hey everyone, my name's Gary Turner and I self-identify as a possibility expander. Why? Because I'm operating at the intersection of international sales, people and culture, equity inclusion and sustainability. And I do this while working full-time within the chemicals industry and serving on the outside of that. Now, why do I explain that with you today? The reason being, I've worked within chemicals for over 20 years. And as I've gone through that journey of working in international sales, learnt more and more about learning and development, organisational design, and more recently over the last 3 to 4 years over systemic oppression, division, colonisation. All of these topics weaved together are actually really, really fascinating, and it really helps us understand, when we bring all of those intersections together, why we are where we are in this very moment. And I'm actually really coming to you with a positive message today, a positive message and an invitation to learn and unlearn, should you be interested. And there's 3 books I want to recommend to you today that I found super helpful to go on this journey of joining dots around the realities of our times. Now, book 1. Book 1 is Hospicing Modernity, by the author Vanessa Mercado de Oliveira. I hope I've not messed that up too much. There is a quote on the front of the book. This is a book about breaking spells, and not just the obvious kind, but the grievously impacted, deep in the psyche variety, from Martin Shaw. Why this book is so important: it really lifts the lid on the systems that currently perpetuate harm, perpetuate division, and indeed starts to point towards one of the big topics in here is the house of modernity. So our Western lives, our regular Western lives, it can already feel hard just to get by, trying to put food on the table, trying to pay for your mortgage, etc. But those day-to-day tasks that we have, I and you have in the West, are nothing compared to the real life harm, oppression, division, and worse that's happening, particularly in the global South, to underpin the relative comfort that you and I experience in the West. So this is not about a book about judgment, it's not a book about shame, but it is a reality check for each one of us in the West to start to understand why I, for example, can have 6 times my salary as an insurance benefit in the workplace, or that you may be able to get funding towards a new business venture that you're looking for. All of that stuff is predicated on there being enough funds in the financial system for you and I to have those benefits. Where does that so-called security come from? Off the backs, generally, of people in the global South. And this book is a real wake-up call. Again, no judgment, no fear, no shame. Just a reality check that the systems that you and I have been handed down over the years are deeply oppressive, deeply divisive, causing harm, and in fact are taking us all off the edge of a cliff. Important book, brilliantly pragmatic, deeply detailed. Read this one first, Hospicing Modernity. Then a symptom of hospicing modernity, or the lack of hospicing modernity, is this book, The Big Con, by Mariana Mazzucato and Rosie Collington. Quite a new book, and the headline on that is How the Consulting Industry, and I emphasise big consulting, that's Winnie dropping a ball because she wants to play, how the consulting industry weakens our businesses, infantiles our governments, and warps our economies. So it's got examples in here of McKinsey, EY, etc. If you work at any of those organisations, again, please do not feel shame or guilt. This is just showing you that systemically those big consultancies are literally carving capacity out of our governments, our institutions, our local communities, in favour of profit that then gets siphoned off again back into the financial system. So in a nutshell, you can see the reduction of capacity, innovation, insight. It's being hollowed out, is the phrase, from our institutions and then siphoned off into the private sector. Now, in and of itself, that wouldn't be a problem on its own, based on traditional capitalist thinking, if the hollowing out is directly linked to oppression again in the global South. So there's many stories in this book that they share, for example, of IMF loans or World Bank loans being given to, for example, African countries, but the African country has to bring in the likes of McKinsey as part of the conditions to get the money to support them becoming, inverted commas, developed. So you can really see how the degenerative thinking and the capitalist growth at all cost mindset is actually perpetuating and reinforcing harm in the global south. And if we learned anything over the last few years, if I've learned anything over the last few years, it's actually those communities in the global south, those peoples that have lived off and with the land forever, are actually the ones that have the knowledge and the insight and the wisdom to help us navigate these current challenges. It's not all down to technology. It's certainly not down to carbon capture. It's certainly not down to sustainable aviation fuel. Those things are not going to save the people that are being harmed the most by our Western ways today. And this book again points at the same hegemony, the same oppressive and divisive structures that have been handed down over generations. Again, no guilt or shame. Trust me, I've had a lot of guilt and shame over the last 4 years. I've been processing a lot of that. My invitation is to read this book after you've read that book for a huge acceleration in understanding as to what's been going on systemically over the last, in particular, 500 to 600 years. And then the third one, if you follow me at all, or if you go and look in my timeline on LinkedIn, I've been sharing a lot of excerpts from this amazing book, Ways of Being. Thank you, Shahana, again, for making me aware of this book. So, the pretext, Ways of Being, Animals, Plants, Machines, The Search for a Planetary Intelligence. From the Washington Post, read this important book, read it twice, talk about it and tell everyone you know. From James Bridle. Why this is so important is that it really builds on those other two books that I've already mentioned, but goes deep into the topic of intelligence. Gotta love this dog. Coming back, Winnie, we're going to play in a second. This book really speaks to the multiple ways that intelligence is actually available to all of us. And when I say all of us, I mean plural. Us as humans, Winnie the dog, plant life, microorganisms, insects. This is quite a new world for me to be talking about, this non-human world. There's people like Bela Rain-Smith, Samantha Paya, many other people that have been deep in this understanding, remembering, than I've been in the last few years. But it's so crystal clear to me that we have over-egged, we have business schools reinforcing that there is only one type of intelligence that is important, and it's human intelligence. And the more we can understand that there are multiple types of intelligence, and there are indeed multiple types of worlds that are possible when we let go of the short-term thinking, the fear, the defensiveness, the desire to have to grow at all costs, to compete, to dominate, to control. This is beyond command and control thinking that we talk a lot about in OD and learning and development spaces and HR. Like, we're talking about command and control and oppressive structures that are literally causing havoc to the planet and to communities in the global south. Right? It's the same thinking, but we're talking about like proper root cause, degenerative, systemic oppression taking place because we're still thinking and being in the same way. And this book is an invitation to think and be so differently, to truly reimagine what is possible for us as individuals, us as a collective, and us as we try and honour and give ourselves permission, if the planet allows us, to stay on the planet in the next generations ahead of us. These three books, I've read many, many books. I could reel off many, many books. But Hospice in Modernity, read that first, then read The Big Con, then read The Ways of Being, and I promise you, you will not look at your experience of life the same way ever again. And importantly, the potentiality of your life, why you've still got that to live, breathe, in this incredible gift that we have, which is this one shot at life. So check out those three books. If you want to chat to me any more about any three of them, I'm sharing this on LinkedIn. You can find me on the internet in other areas, on my YouTube channel, on my Substack at possibilityexpander.substack.com. That's where I'm doing most of my writing, and I'm going to be writing about these three books there as well. And yeah, drop me a line. I would love to connect with you, and I'm particularly interested to connect with senior leaders that work within the chemical sector, pharmaceuticals, food, global supply chain, big energy, etc. I don't believe we're going to make the changes we need through violence, through coercion, through bullying. We've got to come together. We've got to come together to believe that better is possible, and we can only do that if we go inside first. And that's also that's why I'm here. I'm so clear on that. If you're in any of those sectors and you're looking for someone to be a guide at your side as you go on that journey of connecting head, heart, gut, rather than living above the neck as we've all been conditioned to do for all of our lives, I'm here for you, ready to be at your side, and let's have a conversation. But those 3 books, that's the way forward. Much love to you all. I'm recording this on Sunday, the 8th, I think, of October 2023. I'll be in Barcelona in the next few weeks at CPHI, a major pharmaceutical exhibition. And if you're there, let's connect there as well. Take care, everybody. All the best.